Do you want to know a secret to building muscle faster and improving your mobility at the same time? Well, in today's video, I'm going to share with you an exciting new research technique called stretch-mediated hypertrophy, which essentially means by challenging our muscles with additional load in a lengthened position, we can actually build muscle up to 1.5 times faster. So you might be wondering, what does this mean for helping me train pain-free? Well, the interesting thing is that a lot of injuries occur when we're at that lengthened position and our body doesn't have enough strength to protect us from a strain or injury. So I'm going to show you how we can implement these techniques to build muscle faster and bulletproof our body, because you know I'm all about the joint strength training and developing a body that looks good, moves good, and feels good pain-free. So I'm going to show you some examples of my hip mobility routine using some load, focusing on stretch-mediated hypertrophy, and as always, I'll share some examples how we can build bigger arms too, because you gotta have the guns. So check this out. So we're gonna kick off this mobility routine with some weighted exercises to really open up the groin and the adductors and build mobility into what would be called the middle splits position. Now I'm using a goblet here, I'm using a weight to really open up the groin and the adductors. I encourage you to start with something light and just move your body side to side and listen to see how that tissue feels. Now the wider you come into the stance here, the more range of motion you're gonna work through. So I always suggest going side to side and going for as long as feels good to really open up into the body. I want you to prioritize that full range of motion like we've discussed. So if you're doing multiple sets and multiple reps here, try to increase your stance and come a little wider. Make sure to pause at that end position where you're over towards the right leg, and then pause when you're back towards the left leg. Give this one a try, and we're gonna move on to the next exercise, which is gonna be the horse stance. This is a really great exercise to further open up into the groin and adductors to improve your hip mobility. So I want you to continue to hold the kettlebell upright, nice and close towards your chest. I encourage you to play around with the position of your width as well as the external rotation through your foot. So for me, it took me a while to see where I was comfortable. I really liked my knees around 45 degrees. No, I don't want you to be passive here. I want you to drive your big toe into the ground, squeeze your glutes as hard as you can, externally rotate your knees outward, almost like you're gripping into the ground, and try to keep tension through all the muscles in your body while we're in this lengthened stretch position, as well as focus on keeping the muscles active here so we can build some muscle. Now you'll notice I pulse up and down because it's very similar to the sumo squat, because I'm really grooving that range of motion. And after a few sets here, I can sink deeper, I can hold the weight, and I can really open up through my body and build some muscle here. So take your time, do multiple sets, find the stretch that feels good for you. And as always, pause at that bottom position, because that's where we're gonna make a lot of the gains and strengthen the end range of motion to bulletproof your body. The front splits holds are one of my favorite exercises to bulletproof my hamstrings, as well as build strength in the front splits position. So you'll notice here, I'm starting off with some dynamic pulses to really open up and own the position. Depending on your flexibility, your back knee might be bent, but over time, we're gonna work on keeping that back leg straight. A few tips are I like to tuck my pelvis of the back leg and squeeze my glute to make sure I'm fully lengthening my hip flexor, and I'm starting to pulse in that position. Now you'll notice here, I'm holding the bottom position pretty low to the ground. I want you to come where this is comfortable for your body and open up over time into a deeper position. Now you notice here, I like to spend quite a bit of time in the front splits hold, usually around 30 seconds. And you'll notice here, I'm going from just doing the hold with the weight to a little bit of an underhand pass underneath my body, because we don't want to just own this position. I want to make it functional and translate into everyday life. So this is going to strengthen my core and help me stay pain-free. Now this is where the stretch-mediated hypertrophy really gets serious. We're going to go through a series of kettlebell windmills, starting with both legs on the floor in a straddle stance. I want you to grab that weight overhead, really making sure that as your arm's pressed on top, you're externally rotating. So think corkscrewing your arm so your thumb is faced towards you. Now, when you're in this position, you want to slowly lower them down, staying as stable as you can through the core. Now, there's going to be some twisting through the spine as well as stabilizing through the legs here. Slowly control that weight back down. I'm only using 15 pounds and it's pretty challenging here, but by prioritizing the full range of motion, we're going to build some full body strength and full body mobility and build some muscle at the same time. So go nice and slow here. Make sure you master this variation before you move on to the next one, where now we're going to be performing a side body kettlebell windmill. Now you notice here my leg is elevated and my hips are more open. This one targets more the medial hamstring and the adductors. Now there's two variations I'm doing, one with the weight just below my body. This is the more beginner version. If you just want to focus on opening up into the hamstrings and adductors more, go ahead and go for that. And then I want you to move on to the more advanced version that combines the first exercise I showed you with the arm overhead. And again, Pick and choose what you're comfortable with here. But again, I'm not really focused on how many reps I'm doing. I'm focused more so on the feel, how it feels in the tissue, slowly lowering down further each rep, pausing a little bit longer, and focusing on not just going down into the position, but what muscles am I actually using to pull myself up. So really be mindful here, focus on the glutes, the hamstrings, and the core, and using all the muscles in your body to return to the starting position during all of these exercises. Now, earlier in this video, I showed you the front splits hold. If you struggle with that, I'm going to show you another variation where we're going to be doing a version of the couch stretch here. Now, you notice I'm not just passively reclining back and stretching my hip flexor, but I'm almost coming down into the position as if I was doing a Bulgarian split squat. This is going to help me, again, build strength in that length and range of motion and help to build some muscle in the glutes and the hip flexors because they're under such a big stretch. So in this position, I want you to move around, make sure you're keeping that pelvis tilted, leaning back, squeezing the glutes, driving your pelvis forward to get the most out of this stretch position. You know, over time, to determine if you're improving your mobility here, you want to bring that knee closer to the bench or the jump box you're using. This can even be performed on the wall. Over time, sinking deeper. Make sure to really own that range of motion and work on opening up into your mobility here. Now we're going to work on the weighted pancake stretch. You'll notice here I'm a little bit elevated from the ground. This helps to get a better anterior tilt through my pelvis to help fully lengthen the hamstrings and adductors a little bit further. Now from this position, you'll notice I've added some weight. If you're not comfortable with the weight yet, that's okay, but making sure we're progressively adding load over time to get the tissues accustomed to that extra load in the lengthened position. Because we're really focused on improving our mobility here, we want to make sure we're training safely and effectively. So put the ego out the door and start nice and light. I'm only using 25 pounds here, but you didn't see in the video, actually warmed up with 10 pounds just to get my body open to it. Now, you don't need to go down as far as you can in the hip compression if that doesn't feel right. I would say focus on keeping the core engaged and the back straight. You'll open up further over time by prioritizing good technique versus just rounding your back and coming sloppy into that exercise. So give this one a try here. Make sure to go slow and really pause at the end position and breathe and hold. And let's see that mobility open up. Now I'm going to be sharing with you guys my all-time favorite hip mobility exercise, the elevated pigeon stretch. Now you'll notice here my front leg is on the block and my back leg is pretty far back into hip extension. Now depending on your height and what you have access to, you can use an inclined bench or you can use a couch. But try your best to make sure you're comfortable with that leg in the top position. So I'm making sure I feel the weight in my hip and not in my knee here. So I like to start with the pigeon hinges. Again, keeping my spine as straight as I can, slowly inclining myself forward, using my glute in that lengthened position to bring me back up to the top. Now from here, I like to come into a little bit of a squat variation, slowly lowering my knee down and really using all my hip muscles to control that back on the top. That's how we're going to build strength in that end range position. And then from there, if you want to go back for your next set, add a weight to both these exercises to those pigeon hinges, lowering down chest to the calf, pausing, controlling that back up, and adding a weight to those pigeon squats. This is really going to build some strength and muscle in your glutes and bulletproof your hips. So you don't go the next day feeling like, what the heck? I just spent an hour stretching and I'm feeling stiff again. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope this shows you how you can build strength and mobility in your hips at the same time. Make sure to start implementing this into your weekly routine if you want to get those hips that move good and feel good, because you know that's what we're about at Pain-Free Bodybuilding. We're about helping you build a body that moves good, looks good, and stays pain-free for life. We're going to teach you the fundamentals to build a physique that stays pain-free. So as always, hit the painfreebodybuilding.com. Check out what the program's all about. I hope to see you in there. If I don't see you in the program, I'm going to be mad, bro. And as always, stay pain-free.